the students who are taking my body class, please do not forget to sign the attendance lists, but relevant. Okay. Okay, so hello everyone, welcome to the second departmental seminar of Politics and Economics this term. As you all know, as the Department of Politics and Economics, we are holding regular seminars on a quarterly basis in order to contribute to the ongoing academic interaction process. And today, we are hosting Prof.Dr.Mustafa Kemal Bayırbağ from the Department of Political Science and Public Administration at Middle East Technical University, and he will give a seminar on a very salient subject, urban policy process, spatial interventions, and redistribution of well-being. Personally, it's one of the great honors of my life to have Mustafa Kemal Hocam here, because as one of his former students, I have had the opportunity to take his classes and share his academic wisdom, and also he's one of the most influential figures in my academic journey up until now. So in this way, I would like to again thank him for accepting our invitation today. And before passing to the seminar, I would like to give some brief information about Professor Bayırbağ. Prof.Dr.Mustafa Kemal Bayırbağ is a faculty member in the Department of Political Science and Public Administration and the Urban Policy Planning and Local Government Graduate Program at the Middle East Technical University. He is also a research associate with the Second Cold War Observatory. He holds a bachelor's degree in city planning, an MA in urban policy and local governance from ODTÜ, and a PhD in public policy from Kamu University. His research interests are situated at the intersection of urban regional studies and public policy. State speciality and political economy of social exclusion are the two underlying themes of his research orientation, which cut across his past and future works on neoliberal urbanization, urban crisis and governance, the BRI, local development, education policy, and social policy. His recent research problematizes geopolitics of urbanization. Okay, so before passing to the seminar, as you all know, the format of our departmental seminars. First, Mustafa Kemal Hocam will share his academic insights with us, and then we will continue with the Q&A session. Okay, Mustafa Kemal Hocam, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. To be honest, as if I may, just using your first name, Uğur Hoca was introducing me to, and there came a feeling of being overwhelmed by those kind words. Like it's such a great honor to be here, to be honest. I have my former students, current students, right, friends, colleagues, like surrounded by the people that I know and I love to be around with. So this is such a great honor. Thank you so much for inviting me here over and having me over here. So I'll try to discuss in a way a combination of quote-unquote insights or findings from different fields of research that I've been involved with over the past 20 years or so. So then there are three major issues that I'll be dealing with, but under the umbrella of this big question for myself at least. The urban policy process, spatial interventions, and redistribution of well-being. So we will be keeping our focus on three major areas of study: public policy, urban studies, social exclusion. So, what are we really be talking about here? We'll be talking about here the logic behind interventions with public policies, public policy problems, and how policymakers, local or national, might formulate, or they better formulate their policies. So, because most of the problems that we are facing, dealing with on a day-to-day basis, or even the structural problems, not only mundane and daily problems, but long-term macro problems, they are now urban problems, or the problems of our society, human civilization, they are now urban problems. Our civilization is getting urbanized. The whole globe is getting urbanized, slowly being interwoven into one great global, planet-wide, planetary entity, an urban entity. Slowly moving in that direction. So this is what I mean by the urbanization of public policy. It's not simply about, when I speak of urban policy, I'm not simply talking about what local governments are doing. But we are talking about the problems that are now increasingly urban in nature. Right? So the urban is something that is constituted at the global, national, regional, local, and micro-local scales of governance and of collective action. So, having made those points hopefully a bit clearer, let me, again, so when I checked with Uğur Hoca, I asked, okay, what should be the profile of audience that I should be speaking to? So, like a second to third year undergrad students mostly. So, I'll try to be informative. So, for senior students or colleagues, you might find a bit sometimes the stuff that you already know, but please bear with me in that regard. But when it comes to, so I will be giving definitions throughout the discussion. So what's public policy process? It's quote-unquote collective problem-solving activity. So solving our own problems altogether. Well, how different is it from public administration? Well, it is public administration in action. So if public administration is the study of anatomy, human anatomy, right? Public policy surgery, right? It's the state in action, or it's public praxis. So we are looking at the action side to the story, right? So, and it cannot be restricted only to the field and domain of public administration for that reason. You have to think about and try to establish the links across the domains of public administration and economics, public administration and society, so on and so forth. So it's about what we call as collective problem-solving activity, and the textbook definition is whatever governments choose to do or not to do to address a problem that is public in nature. So that's textbook definition, right? Whatever governments choose to do or not to do. Sometimes doing nothing is also an option. You may be aware of the problem, but they just prefer to do nothing about it, or suppress or ignore the problem. That's also a different strategy. Right? But here, this whole process, public policy making, is problem-solving activity, but all in all, it refers to a process, a chain of decisions. So public policy is not a one big decision. In other words, from now on, we will have the compulsory education stretched to the university education level. So not 12 years, but 16 years from then on. Right? So this is just a policy statement, but this is not the policy. This is just a decision itself. But then comes the question, how are we going to do it? So the study of public policy is studying the how question. How do we actually do it? How is that going to happen? Right? So here then, it's decision making, but action-oriented decision making. In other words, public policy is about making decisions that are to be implemented, or action-oriented. So every decision triggers yet another decision.
So you move from the abstract to the concrete, right? From the ideas and values to services that are delivered to your door.
So that is a chain of decisions, but those chain of decisions consist of or require the existence of a multiplicity of actors. Now I would like to take you to this chart. So this is a public policy process chart based on the stages approach. This is not my own invention, but I drew this regardless, but I added a few stages to it, right? So this is the public policy process. You start with a problem or a failure of a government policy, then someone notices that problem, recognizes this as a problem, they get organized, right? They begin to draft the agenda, right? Push for the agenda, and this agenda and demand is filtrated by the constitution, by the media. Certain demands are just totally ignored or suppressed. Some of them just come to the table of the decision maker. This is the domain of parliament, the presidential office, right? All the major decision-making organs. There are negotiations going on here, then turn into a policy package or documents, right? For instance, a law or a bylaw, so on and so forth. Then those big decisions are rather translated into more operational legal text and rule sets. Then the process implementation moves on. Not only the bureaucracy, but also the private sector actors, the firms, companies, the NGOs, even the citizens themselves, they become the implementers of those big policies. Then we end up with policy outputs. In other words, you produce, okay, you want to improve the level of education in the country, you end up with 1 million new diplomas, the output. Outcome, now they find better jobs, right? Output and outcome, so you have 1 million more diplomas, they find better jobs, the problem, unemployment solved, poverty solved, move on. Or vice versa. And it works the other way around too, right? So this is what I'm talking about. So in every single stage, there are different types of actors involved, right? Political parties, NGOs, social movements, experts, lobby groups, so on and so forth. Here you see the media at work. Here you see professional politicians. You see different interest groups, lobbying groups, global institutions, right? Local governments, all involved here. Then you have the official policy document production process. Then you have the high-level bureaucrats involved in this process. Then it goes down to the street-level bureaucrats, right? So different types of actors with varying interests, sometimes conflicting interests, they all get together. So this is a whole big process of negotiation. Well, but this is not a totally chaotic process in a way, because the real owner of the right in current context, mostly in nation states, the owner of the policies are national governments, right? Nation states, central governments here in Ankara, the presidential office, mostly in our current system, right? However, this doesn't mean that you have one owner of the policy process. The whole process will function smoothly, because you would expect this whole process to operate smoothly. You should expect the policymaker first to be sitting on top of a rather Weberian hierarchy, right? So you need a very well-controlled, strictly controlled organizational environment within the bureaucracy. But this is not enough. That policymaker should be able to establish strict controls over the behavior of market actors, firms, and the society. The citizens and the NGOs and so forth, right? So you need a controlled socio-economic environment too. But we have nothing of that sort around nowadays, right? Well, we must still have a kind of more centralized decision-making environment, but we end up with just a second. There we go. We end up with something like this, folks. So this was the center of everything, the Keynesian welfare state, if you will, the nation state. The headquarters in here, bakanlıklar. Right? Then, over the course of half a century, right? I mean, upon the dawn of neoliberalism, but it has taken about half a century now. It has gone through what you call the capitalist state, has gone through a big bang, has exploded, expanded into this. Now, this used to be the capitalist state all in itself. Now, this is the capitalist state. The whole governance matrix. Still, the nation states, central governments are still the key actors, but the players in the game, they are multiplied at various scales of governance and in different domains of collective action. Here, public domain is one domain of collective action, then the market domain is yet another domain of collective action, and the same with civil society, right? So I'm here following, in a Plancetian tradition, Bob Jessup's definition of the globalization and statization, restatization of the state and rescaling of the state. So this is what we end up with. So this is the whole state in itself. How the state now is rearticulated and is operating, right? So here in the center of the nation state, the ministries, also the presidential office, they turn into, quote unquote, the network administrators. So we have at the intersection of, right, those different scales of governance and collective action, we have different types of actors. For instance, take the example of Ministry of Education. Oops. Right? Here you have the ministry, a general directorate. Here you have, for instance, a national scale NGO that is providing dormitories and scholarships to students. Here you have a dormitory, a neighborhood scale or district scale level NGO for dormitories, yardımlaşma dernekleri, for instance. Here you have the association of, here for instance you have, here or here, you have for instance the association of national or global association of high school or higher education providers, for instance. I'm just making that up for the moment, right? Here you have the local service providers, private school owners, right? They're all somehow interconnected. And they coexist and they co-function simultaneously. Now, instead of having one single service delivery mechanism, we have a rather network-like picture now. So here we end up with a policy network for education. And for different types of policy fields, you might have different types of networks emerging with different weight centers. Here it would be national, perhaps at the scale of health, it would be here. So the weight center of the whole network could be located anywhere along this scheme. Is that going clear, folks? Is that going clear? Okay. So where does the urban enter the picture here? Okay, I'm asking you. Where do you think the urban enters the picture here? Any thoughts or ideas? Don't be shy, just jump in. Yeah, go ahead.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's like the sea that, okay, you know, well, it's hard to translate into Turkish, but o mahiler ki derya işidir. Right? Those fishes that are in the fish, but in the ocean, but they don't know that they're in the ocean. Right? So this is the urban. The whole story is urban. In two senses, urban as a noun, right? It's all like urban settlements, places, but urban as an adjective. Qualitatively, certain things are becoming urbanized. Is that point clear? Now, let's jump jump to another, let me pose another question. What is urban? Mostly in most lectures I start with big concepts, but we just assume that we know what public means, what urban means. Perhaps we don't. Or we don't have the total answer or complete answer. Question. What is urban? Go ahead.
What is not rural?
What is not rural? But is urban as an analytical category, is it something that we can grasp via binarisms? So urban is what is not rural? Or should we understand urban as the end of a continuum? One end of a continuum as an ideal type versus the rural. Or rural is just a subcategory of what we call today urban. Because if by rural we mean nature, now the nature is our total control as a species. Right? And now all the rural production, right, agricultural production is now subordinated to the urban consumption. I hope my point is clear. So, do we truly have rural? Rural is just an extension of the urban. I hope my point is clear. So, what's urban?
Is the base
It's a base of
economy.
Economy, but I mean, as an adjective perhaps, hocam. As an adjective. What is it that makes something urban? So you might want to refer to
Concept of urban.
the urbanism as a way of life. If we revisit the Chicago School by Louis Wirth, right? Urbanism as a way of life. What's urban? Well, in Turkish we have kent and kentsel, right? Right? Kent and kentsel. Then we have şehir, right? City. So urban is not city. We have cities are settlements. So urban is rather about the quality of something, about the quality of the way in which we get organized as a species. We coexist, we cooperate, we collaborate as a species. Urban is an invention. Urban is our invention. We invent something called next to the state. It's a political technique that we have invented. We have invented the urban. Urban is not natural. It's our own invention. So we have turned the urban into real. So what's urban then?
Production.
There's production, productivity, but also
Invented production.
extremely consuming, aggressively consuming too. Yes, production, but extremely consuming. But if urban, it's extremely connected. Right? Connectivity question. Connectivity.
Organization.
Organization. Different forms of human organization.
Culture.
Culture. Right? Cosmopolitanism. Diversity, commodification. Right? Speed. And also in terms of volumes, right? It's an agglomeration. We are packing up. Not only the volume is getting bigger and bigger, but also its intensity of human relations. Right? The degree of connectivity. Right? So it's rather about the change in the fabric of space and time. And it's the fabric in the way in which we sense the world around. It's how we connect with each other.
Social effects.
That's social. So it's a quality in that regard. So that's why, so I've been answering, commenting on still Sırmaca's point that it's all around here. No longer urban problems, no longer an educational problem, which would be, in the Weberian sense, would be only the responsibility of the Minister of Education, could be restricted to only to the Minister of Education. You can no longer have an extremely, right, and hierarchically divided public policy system, the state, right, along sectoral lines, right? We have Minister of Education, Minister of Health, Minister of Industry, blah, 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 blah. They do their own jobs separately, but
in reality, in real life, they're interconnected. You cannot separate the health from education. You cannot separate the industry from environment. In terms of Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Industry, right? How come is that so? Because they are increasingly woven into a complex tapestry of policy problems, and they get increasingly spatialized. So geography takes over the whole problematic, right? So we must subscribe to a spatial understanding of the way in which public policies take form and problems take form. And we must develop a spatial sensitivity towards our analysis of policy problems and how we go about addressing them. So that's why this is about the spatial interventions. How are we doing time-wise? Are they? You're great. Very good. Very good? Okay. So I've been halfway through, right? Around 20 minutes, I guess. Okay. Ya ayıp olur deme yani. Söyle. Okay. So I'm just going to give you an example. So from our daily life. Now you wake up early in the morning, right? You wake up early in the morning, and it's cold because that goddamn combi, right? You were not courageous enough to just turn it up, turn the heater on, or turn it up because it's too expensive. The energy policy, right? Then you move to the washroom, right? It's cold, so you want to wash your face, but the water is not coming through the tap, right? The water policy, infrastructure policy. Now you move to the kitchen and open the refrigerator, and in the parlance of Cem Yılmaz, boynu bükük yoğurt, right? That poor yogurt is looking at you from a distance, and you have nothing else to eat and nibble on. The food policy, agricultural policy, or inflation policy. Then you dress up, you go to the bus stop, you're waiting for the bus to come, and it never shows up on time, and you are late. Transportation policy. Then you on the bus to school, you are thinking about what sort of lectures you'll be attending today and how unnecessary they are for your own career purposes. And you keep asking yourself, what the hell am I doing here in this bus now? Right? The higher education policy. Right? And the school, in the meantime, as you are attending the school, you are thinking about, okay, how am I going to repay my grants, the loans for education? It's the higher education policy. Again, one more time. But when you suffer about or complain about the courses, it's the education policy of your university, and the other one is higher education council or the government policy, right? Then on your way back home, okay, where should I apply for a job, or where should I go for an internship, right? This is employment or unemployment policy, right? So were you able to divide your feelings among those policies? No. So in the domain of public administration, it's segmented, divided, but daily life is not segmented. We cannot distinguish between them. So the urban setting increasingly weaves together those different types or sides of policy. You cannot distinguish them, right? You cannot divide the daily life. You cannot divide your mind into fragments, sectors. So this is what urban means. Urban increasingly brings together different issues, different problems in your mind. And we feel the pressure. We feel the alienation, right? We feel the burden of the world on our shoulders for those reasons. In other words, we experience the combined effect of public policies. So the urban setting is the best place to decipher or uncover or study those combined effects. That's why the urban phenomena is so crucial to understand public policies. How problems are to be solved, whether they are solved or not. Are these points clear for